Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. This time we're going to be looking at the M56 Scorpion. This is going to be a Tier 7 premium American tank destroyer coming into the game, most likely in patch 9.7. It's relatively fast. It's not hyper fast, maybe like an E25. It has absolutely no armor, but because of this, it gets a gun that can punch well above its tier. That sounds like the tank for you. Hang around after I just run down the statistics of this vehicle. I've got multiple gameplays for you. And if you have no interest playing the Scorpion, then I will let you know exactly how you can take this tank out on the battlefield in the next patch. Firstly, I'd quickly like to highlight that Wargaming simply keep outdoing themselves with the level of detail that they put on their vehicles. We have the ammo rack at the back here, some tools in case I guess it gets itself into some trouble. I love the tow cables, which seem to break up the flat surfaces. And the gun, as we can see here, does have a really cool firing mechanism. So while the M56 Scorpion was classified as an SPG, i.e. a self-propelled gun, it doesn't work in the same way as other self-propelled guns do in the game. It was intended to support airborne units as a light tank destroyer that could be transported by cargo planes or inserted by parachute or glider. It was mass-produced between 1953 and 1959, but the vehicle was not popular and it was soon replaced by the Sheridan light tank. In light of this, it's very unsurprising that this vehicle is so light. It weighs just over 7 tons, and that has implications if you get rammed. If an enemy tank does collide with you, it is going to be devastating. Pretty much the same as if you ram an ELC AMX. That's the kind of impact that the Scorpion is going to have to deal with. Thankfully, however, the tank has got okay mobility. It's got a speed limit of 45 kilometers an hour frontally, but one thing that I've been finding is that its reverse speed is rather frustrating. It's 12 kilometers an hour backwards. And considering this tank does not get a fully traversable turret, it has a 30 degrees and another 30 degrees on the front gun arc, giving a combined 60 degrees, means that you can't drive it backwards so that you can get away more quickly like you could in a lot of other light tanks. To go with this, the tank has a 200 horsepower engine, which gives it a very healthy horsepower to ton ratio of 28. That is in the region of light tanks mobility. And it also has an excellent traverse speed of 40 degrees a second. So really, what this means is that the Scorpion has medium plus mobility overall, as long as you can deal with that limited top speed limit. Now onto something very interesting about this vehicle. Yep, it doesn't have any armor. This has got the lowest armor of any tank in the game. 1mm all round, which means that if it gets hit, it's guaranteed to go in because every single round in the game is going to overmatch its armor. And so this means that if you see a Scorpion, you should fire high explosive ammunition at it. Not only does high explosive ammunition do more damage than your armor piercing rounds, but it will most likely cause immense internal damage to the vehicle. And we should also mention that it has 820 hit points, which at tier 7 is okay. That's pretty much standard on most of the tier 7 tank destroyers. But when the enemies are firing high explosive rounds at you, it's not going to last for very long. This tank has very surprising view range. It's 350 meters. Most open top tanks have huge view range in World of Tanks. So I guess this is a balancing factor. 350 meters view range means that you really do need to use binoculars on this tank to get anywhere near the 445 meters max spotting distance. But as you do have a semi-traversable turret, this means that you can stay stationary, keep your binoculars activated, keep your camouflage net activated, and keep engaging your opponents. But as soon as you move, unless you're using optics in this tank, you're going to have very bad view range. It's also worth mentioning that the turret traverse on this vehicle is 12 degrees a second. That's really bad. In short to mid-range combat, you have to turn your tracks as well as your turret to stop your enemies from flanking around you. And while that's not too much of a big deal, it's quite awkward with that 12 degrees to be able to consistently keep your reticule on your opponent if they're moving around quite quickly. To put this number into context, a T-30, everyone knows it, the Tier 9 American turreted tank destroyer, has 18 degrees a second traverse speed on its turret, or an E-100, which has 20 degrees a second traverse speed. So when you're engaging a Scorpion, keep that in mind. If it's moving, it's very likely to have bad view range, And in a close quarters combat situation, while it does have a turret, it's going to be very, very slow. So keep yourself mobile to give yourself the most chance of evading his fire or to stop him from shooting at your weak points. Now let's talk about the highlight of the Scorpion, and that is its gun. It gets a 90mm with 240 alpha damage and 320 alpha damage on its high explosive rounds. Now I've just put a T20 stats over here on the right for you so we can compare, because the tanks are both Tier 7 American vehicles and they both use a 90mm. The Scorpion has a very impressive penetration of 219. 219 is very competitive on Tier 8 and still pretty competitive on a Tier 9 medium tank such as the Patton. And the vehicle also has the option to fire heat, which has got 275mm of penetration. More than enough to go through the front of pretty much every tank that you can meet up until Tier 9. The shell price of these rounds is also quite cheap indeed. 380 per AP shell means that you're going to be making tons of credits. It's also worth noting, and this is one of the features that I noticed on the test server, that the heat rounds in this tank have a very high shell velocity of 1,219. They go through the air faster than the AP rounds do, which is contrary to the vast majority of cases in World of Tanks where the AP rounds go to the target faster than your heat rounds. This is very similar to the Speerpanzer, which, as we can see here, has 805 meters a second on its AP and 1,145 on its heat, which previously was a novelty that now the M56 Scorpion wants to take part in. Now the rate of fire of the Scorpion is fantastic, 7.69 rounds a minute. That means that its DPM is 20% higher than the Tier 7 medium tank, the T20. It is also very accurate, 0.33 meters, with a great aim time of 2 seconds. And now on to one of the highlights of the Scorpion, and that's that it gets 10 degrees of gun depression, amongst the highest in the game and a large novelty for a tank destroyer to have. This allows the Scorpion to poke over ridgelines, only exposing its relatively small gun shield, hopefully evading fire and pulling back. It's definitely one of the best features of the vehicle and a saving grace considering the view range and the turret traverse disadvantage. Also, you don't have to worry too much about ammunition in the Scorpion. You have enough potential damage to do 10,000 in a game, which is above and beyond what would ever be expected of you in a Tier 7 tank destroyer. So anyway guys, that's quite enough theory crafting. Let's get stuck into some gameplay. So here we go, we're playing in the Scorpion on Windstorm, and we're going hunting after this ELC. Whoa! That was a lucky snapshot. He had a bad day. Now we've got a Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger that we have to engage. We're going to stick our tiny little gun shield up after him and use these 10 degrees of gun depression that we have to try and engage him. He misses our gun shield. And I have to turn the tracks just a little bit because of the limited turret traverse on this vehicle. We miss our shot into the back of the IS-3 and the Borsig comes back out for another go. I'm trying to get him to miss me. He does. And we put one into his turret. Let's just pause this for a second and take a look to see how much area the guy has to hit on me. So from this position, I can see the Borsig. So let's see how much of my vehicle the guy could see. We will go right inside his gun and take a look. So there you go. That's how much of a Scorpion you can see. It's not the biggest of targets, but then again, it's not the smallest, and it's really nice to have those 10 degrees of gun depression to work your opponents. It's also worth noting that this big gap in the gun shield does not count as a hitbox as far as I've been able to tell. Next, let's have a look at the mobility of the Scorpion. As we can see, its top speed limit is limited to 45 kilometers an hour. If it wasn't, this thing would be able to motor around with its excellent horsepower to ton ratio. Here we can see an FCM 50T, but he gets taken out before we have a chance to engage him. There's a Type 59 hanging around above us on the ridge. I'm quite worried about him. But there's also a 110 coming round, so I aim my gun in an ambush for the Type 59. But there's an IS-6 above. Our first shot goes quite high and we're unable to penetrate his side armor. The next one, however, we fire through a wall into his tank, 258 damage. What a great roll there for the 240 alpha damage 90mm gun. We put one into the 110 in the side, but by firing, we get spotted. We take a big shell from him and lose our engine. Put it back in and try and snipe at the 110 again. As we can see, it's only when we fire that we give up our camo rating. Even with a camouflage net, I think having a camo crew on this vehicle will be of the utmost importance. And binoculars and a camo net, I think, are really the only way to go. So now we're going to fire some heat rounds. Please take note. As you can see how fast they go towards the target, well, what I was talking about earlier. It's something that you have to get used to, the difference between the AP and the heat rounds in this vehicle, as you have to give different amounts of lead depending on which you choose. So the 110 pulls back. He can't afford to take any more hits from our 90mm in the side, but we can advance at him. One of the most lovely things about this tank is the 10 degrees of gun depression that you get, and look at this, we can just seem to work the ridges. It does give you a huge amount of flexibility that you don't get in other tank destroyers. And it allows the Scorpion to kind of play like a medium tank. Right into the lower plate of the Lurve there. And now, all that's left is a little artillery, an FV304, and guys, you do not know how many FV304s are on the test server. What do you think they're doing? Yep, they're sitting there trying to play against all of the Scorpions with their their 1mm of armor, consistently doing 450 damage every 8 seconds. Little trolls playing their FV304s on the test server. But that's a T-54 Mod 1. That's a brand new Tier 8 Soviet medium tank. Premium, I should say. Our first shot, we track him. He repairs his tracks. I try and take his tracks off again, but we don't manage to. He hits us again to a fraction of our health, tries to rush us, we keep calm, and put a shot into his lower plate. So what a great result here for the Scorpion. We picked up 4 kills against the majority higher tiered opponents. The gun on this tank truly is lovely, unlike a lot of other Tier 7 premium tank destroyers. Talking about the recently removed E25 as an example, the tank's gun, apart from its rate of fire, was rather underwhelming. And you quite often had to load premium rounds to engage your opponents. That's something the Scorpion doesn't have to do, even though the vehicle does not get premium matchmaking and can meet Tier 9 tanks. So let's just take a very quick look at the post-game stats. So this was a Mastery Badge 1,747 experience, 64,000 credits made. We finished top on experience and also on damage, doing 2,302 for our 4 kills. It's also worth noting that this tank does get a bonus for being a premium, which was 349 extra, giving us a combined 2,096 experience. Also, we made a tidy profit even though we used premium consumables this game. If you take away the cola, we would have made 45,000 credits profit.
Let's get this show on the road.
Now we're playing the Scorpion on El Haloof. Again, not the best matchup for the tank I'm against, pretty much. The entirety of the enemy team are Tier 8 tanks, apart from their artillery and their scouts. But whenever I've been playing the Scorpion on the test server, I don't really feel like I'm at a disadvantage. The only thing that this tank truly lacks is, I guess, a degree of flexibility with the gun. It still has really nice overall mobility, which does rival quite a few medium tanks, and also some of the lights. It's just the armor that's the problem, and so a lot of the skill with the Scorpion is not getting shot. Quite similar to, for example, that brand new AMX CDC. They're not that different when you think about it. So most tanks, which have got about 5 degrees of gun depression, simply can't use these positions. However, the Scorpion's got 10. So, I don't need to camp at the back where, for example, the Jagdpanther 2 is here. We can go right into the thick of it and try and make some plays. Now we're against two Tier 8 premium tanks,
Penetration.
Panther 88 and the brand new AMX CDC. We're taking chunks out of them, and we're managing to pull back before we get shot. And that's because we are a very little target.
Enemy armor is damaged.
Our reverse speed might be underwhelming, but it's still enough to get out of harm's way. And when the tanks just let you shoot them like this, we can evade them with some
Enemy is hit.
tight maneuvers backwards and forwards. You can put out some serious damage very quickly. T-54 Mod 1 takes a big hit, and we just keep chipping away at our
Enemy
opponents.
armor is destroyed.
Cue an engagement against the Porsig. Oh, the first shell goes into the tracks of the Panther. This ELC comes up and tries to engage me. But we go after the Porsig again. This time we hit him,
Armor is damaged.
and our artillery supports us taking out the ELC AMX. There's another one of those FV304 test server trolls. Yeah, how'd you like that? We tracked him. This felt good.
They're knocked out.
For every artillery hit I took in my Scorpion. So we have another CDC below us. 10 degrees of gun depression.
Enemy armor is hit.
I don't think he expected us to be able to engage him there. The Scorpion really does do some amazing ridgeline work. So I race down the slope to try and support this T-34-3. He gets absolutely annihilated,
Penetrate their
and our shell goes a little high and hits the well-angled upper armor of the Jagdpanther II rather than the nice, juicy mid and lower plate. We can retreat quickly and get back into a position. I feel like this tank does best when it's shooting over ridgeline at its opponents. That's the kind of playstyle that I've developed in pretty much all of my medium and light tanks, so it's very refreshing to play a tank destroyer that kind of has the same gameplay.
penetration.
There's simply nothing
Enemy is hit.
that the Jagdpanther can do here when we have his flank.
They're knocked out.
The IS-6 is trying to sneak his way up around me though. Quite worried about the artillery on the enemy team. There are still 2 artillery, and if they hit me they will penetrate and I will die. The IS-6 misses his shot. We push forwards. We don't have a clean shot though. He reverses into a hill, and he puts a good one into our gun shield. And we're unable to engage him. But he's running away from us. I guess he's thinking the Scorpion is a lot more dangerous than it really is in a close quarters fight with an IS-6. An IS-6 has kind of got enough armor to annoy you in a Scorpion. But let's go and make that gun depression work again. Now we're above him.
Enemy armor
First
is
shot.
damaged.
Onto the deck of his tank. And look at this. This is what I love about this vehicle. Just the angles that you can create
Enemy vehicle destroyed.
on your opponents are absolutely amazing. So even though we were the baby tank in that matchup, we managed to net 2,834 experience, although quite a lot of that was due to the premium bonus that this tank gets. Nevertheless, if you want to buy this tank just to convert experience, it's definitely something you've got to take into account. That was 1,575 base. We finished top on damage, half more than what anyone else was able to do, even though we were the only legitimate non-tier 8 tank on the enemy team that wasn't an artillery or a scout. And really that's nothing surprising because the Scorpion, it doesn't care if it gets shot by a tier 9 tank or a tier 5 tank. Either way, it's going to go in, and really it's only the caliber of the gun matters because you've got that 800 or so hit points to survive the battle with. We made a very healthy profit this game. If you take away the cola, it was 80,000 credits. And so you can certainly make a very nice profit even playing this tier 7 premium tank destroyer. And so that is The M56 Scorpion. I cannot wait to pick up this Tier 7 American tank destroyer. Wow, what a screenshot at the end of the game. Absolute little troll. Amazing gun depression, amazing mobility, and enough penetration and DPM on the gun to shoot your way out of trouble. Those are pretty much all of the stats that you need for a high skill cap tank capable of carrying a lot of situations. I'm personally really happy with the M56 Scorpion. I think it's a novel tank. It's not another premium clone that Wargaming are putting in the game, maybe to just fit a demographic of people wanting specific premium vehicles, and I can't wait to pick one up and play it in patch 9.7. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider giving it a like down below. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the M56 Scorpion. Do you think it's going to be overpowered? Do you think it's about right balance considering it's got 1mm of all-round armor? What do you think about the fact that the tank does not get preferential matchmaking? And maybe you're an artillery player who cannot wait for them to be put into the game so you can one-shot them. Anyway, as always guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.